What are your favorite, or I guess, what are your go-to metrics that you use to track that progress, that hypertrophy?
So my number one is always going to be photos. 1000% photos are going to end up being my large variable that I'm paying the most attention to because I think that yes, photos can have variance to them, but we can control a lot of the things that are going to be in the particular photos. Whereas with measurements, if we were to use tape measure, for example, I really like the tape measure. I would say that the tape measure ends up being my second, but the reason it's not first is because depending on how the individual stores body fat, we may have someone who stores a majority of their body fat, especially for a lot of the women that I work with, through their hips. And so that glute measurement may quickly pace up, not in a way that we're putting on more muscle tissue, but in a way that this is where we're just storing more of our body fat in general. So that's something to, like, a caveat of, yes, this could be the case that we've gained this much muscle tissue, but we also have to be cognizant of the reality in which you've gained body fat while we've been in this surplus. And that's something to keep in mind. And so the physique photos kind of show that. As I've looked at, Sue and I have tried to get a real number of how many physique photos I have compared to one another week to week, month to month, all of that over the last 10, 11 years. And it's in the thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of, I have no idea. It's such a high number. And so my eye to photos is very well trained. And that's where I'm going to be able to depict of, is this looking more visually like this is added body fat, or is this looking more as if it's more, muscle tissue specifically? And we can also see that through motion. We can see that pretty easily through training videos and those different factors. And so I'm always assessing videos, I'm always assessing photos, and I find those to be the two greatest metrics of being able to really see progress over time. If I had to put a least used as my main marker, it's probably going to be the body weight scale. Can be useful, but I do not think that it is going to be my number one indicator of, okay, we added a half a pound over this month. That's a good sign that we added muscle tissue. It could be, but there's so many variables and things that are going to be impacting that scale reading that it's not going to be my main driver. And it doesn't matter for bikini what weight you get up on the stage at. I know that this is more specific to muscle building, but at the end of the day, you could get up there at 135 pounds or 115 pounds. It's going to depend on how that looks on your frame and how you're able to present and the leanness that you're able to present. And that weight is, no one is at, like, it's not part of your scoring. You may be asked backstage of, like, what's your final weight or what have you. But that's really going to be it's really just between you and your coach when it comes to the scale readings.
I completely agree. And I think, especially for female athletes, I think scale reading can be helpful in establishing change. But the actual number itself relative to height, I mean, like, it could be a reference point based on, top competitors in the space of, like, hey, this is maybe what I need to work up to. Cool. But ultimately, like, we're all built a little bit differently. Your predisposition to store body fat, whether that be towards your lower body, towards just your extremities, or towards your midsection, these are all things that will contribute to that rate of change presenting differently, even next to another athlete who is technically at the same weight or same height. So I think that's where it's really important to have a comprehensive picture. And what I found myself is that measurements alongside calipers have been really, really helpful. And, in 2014, when I competed for the first time, like, I was at Gold's in College Station. Like, I had a trainer there do my skin fold sights. They're like, oh, you're at 12%. No, like, that just, I mean, like, a real 12% as what, like a 19-year-old, an under muscled 19 bikini competitor. Like, no, it would just, it's just not true. I think a lot of times with skinful sites, that actual numerical value can be assigned, how do I want to phrase this? I think a lot of people can put weight into that value that they get from the body fat percentage and consider that good or bad. I think the judgment is oftentimes, okay, the lower I am, the more impressive my physique is going to look, when in reality that, again, it doesn't dictate, it doesn't showcase the whole picture. And I mean, like, if individuals, if listeners have followed my competition career, you know, there are times I've come in very lean. There's times I've come in not as lean. And yes, objectively, like being leaner, you have potentially a greater likelihood of placing better as compared to if you're not in shape. But that really isn't our goal within bikini. It's not to be the leanest physique or have the lowest body fat percentage. So I think that's where, particularly with muscle building, like being able to understand, okay, this is the body fat percentage, or I don't really like the percentages, but I do like using like in millimeters, like the pinchable fat compared to my last stage look, my leanest physique last prep, and considering, okay, you know, okay, if you do a mini cut within your growth phase, how close are you? Are you actually within striking distance? And I think that can be really helpful.